People now know that the deaths of untold thousands doomed by the tragedy which bestruck New Orleans had more to do with the plan of purposeful ethnic cleansing than government incompetence when it comes to FEMA and disaster relief. The Associated Press was able to gain access to video of the Bush administration briefings prior to Hurricane Katrina's landfall, where he was warned vigorously that this one could be the one and that there could be a potential for a large loss of life.
It was Sunday, August 29th, 19 hours before Hurricane Katrina slams ashore on the Louisiana coast. The storm was still at sea, swirling and strengthening. Then FEMA Chief Michael Brown was briefing President Bush, Homeland Security Secretary Michael Chertoff, and local officials on the readiness plans. The meeting was recorded, and now, 6 months later, obtained exclusively by the Associated Press. The tape shows a clear sense of urgency.
My gut tells me, I told you guys, my gut was that this is a bad one and a big one. Everyone within FEMA is actually on call. This is, put it mildly, the big one, I think.
The nation's top hurricane experts offer their predictions.
This is a Category 5 hurricane, very similar to Hurricane Andrew in the maximum intensity, but there's a big difference. This hurricane is much larger than Andrew ever was.
And identify major threats.
I also want to make absolutely clear to everyone that the greatest potential for a large loss of life is still in the coastal areas from the storm surge.
Brown also voices concern over the so-called shelter of last resort, the New Orleans Superdome, another fear that would, in time, prove accurate.
As you may or may not know, the Superdome is about 12 feet below sea level, so I don't know what the heck. And I also concerned about that roof. I don't know whether that roof is designed to withstand a Cat 5 hurricane. So not to be kind of gross here, but I'm concerned about NDMS and medical and DMORT assets and their respond to a catastrophe within a catastrophe. So,
President Bush was dialed into that briefing from his ranch in Crawford, Texas, and offers support for the ongoing efforts.
I want to assure the folks at the state level that we are fully prepared to not only help you during the storm, but we will move in whatever resources and assets we have at our disposal after the storm to help you deal with the loss of property, and we pray for no loss of life, of course.
But the president doesn't ask any questions, and just 4 days later tells ABC News that no one could have predicted the scope of this storm.
There is frustration, but I want people to know there's a lot of help coming. I don't think anybody anticipated the breach of the levees.
A seemingly direct contradiction to what is said at the briefing.
I don't think anyone can tell you with any confidence right now whether the levees will be topped or not, but that's obviously a very great concern.
Concern for a storm that would leave more than 1,300 dead and 2,300 people missing.
This government and Bush-led administration is incompetent, no doubt. However, they are following an agenda to set up the foundation of martial law in America. Hence, the end of posse comitatus and the reality of Blackwater mercenaries on the streets of America. Unless one understands the agenda, one will not understand why the people were left to fend for themselves for so long. The powers that be wanted open rebellion and rioting in the streets. They were setting up the conditions for public unrest and dissatisfaction.
Units taking part in relief work now in New Orleans, but their role limited by a 19th century law that restricts the operations of our troops on American soil.
Today, authorities stepped up their efforts to empty the city. Bob Woodruff is there again tonight with an extraordinary human drama unfolding. Bob?
That's true, Elizabeth, and good evening from New Orleans. Here, the police and the National Guard find themselves in a very difficult position tonight to try to carry out an order to force people from the city without actually using force.
Emotions were raw. This is America. Has your neighborhood ever been invaded by state troopers from another state? sent here by God knows whom. Many of the people continuing to stay in New Orleans were told time was running out. Ashton O'Dwyer is an attorney, but says he'll defy any order requiring him to evacuate. I will leave when I am dead. Okay? Let them be warned. They come to my house, they try to evict me, they try to take my guns, there will be gunfire. With his house intact and with plenty of food and water, O'Dwyer cannot understand why folks like him are being forced to leave. Treat me with benign neglect. Get out of my neighborhood, get out of my life, get out of my city. You can see police and soldiers on just about every corner trying to talk sense into the remaining holdouts. But in every case we encountered, residents refused to back down.
But there's no electricity, no running water.
Didn't you ever camp in your life? Didn't you ever go wilderness camping? Do you know what that's about? That's what we're doing right now.
Paramedics tried to convince Bill Stinson to leave, but he told them to take a hike. He's worried about being separated from his dogs.
My dogs are not going into a shelter.
Okay,
they are not going away from me.
You cannot have a required military presence on the streets of America without an enemy to dispel or a riot to control. FEMA squashed all assistance to the New Orleans residents until the looting began, and then they sent the military in to sweep up the subversives with shoot-to-kill orders. And while the hopes and dreams of thousands of individuals and families were utterly destroyed, the executives celebrated the shredding of posse comitatus and the opening foundation for martial law declaration under unitary executive rule.
We heard about a development at the convention center, and this morning one of our cameras went in. What you're about to see is pure desperation on the parts of hundreds of citizens, and this tape was indeed edited.
They're telling everybody that we all right.
No, my mother stopped.
We need help. They're not doing nothing. We need help, sir. We really need help. National Guard.
Come on, man. We got the babies need juices. Need juices and stuff.
Tell these old people here, these old people been on here since Monday. Damn, tell you, we need to give these old people peanut butter down in the glass of water. They have bought nothing. Make sure y'all show that. Show all these old people these babies. Look at that baby there.
For the last 4 days, I've been seeing dead bodies in the streets here in Mississippi, and to listen to politicians thanking each other and complimenting each other, you know, I got to tell you, there are a lot of people here who are very upset and very angry and very frustrated, and when they hear politicians thanking one another, it just, it kind of cuts them the wrong way right now, because literally there was a body on the streets of this town yesterday being eaten by rats.
2 days ago, I was on that same bridge at exit 235 saying there were thousands of people there then who didn't know where to go. They went to the Superdome. They were told no. The federal government finally stepped up and said, no, don't go to the Superdome, but they weren't told where to go. So they sit there. It may be because they were worried about chaos in other places if too many people were gathered. There's just no answer to that question. It's one of the first stories I've ever covered where questions as simple as, why do the people on the easily accessible bridge not get food and water and don't even get instructions of where to go to get food and water and medical attention? It's the first time I've ever not known the answer to that, and I'm not sure there is an answer.